Bartholomew, fill in the blank. In 2024, Bill Belichick will be coaching for?
Raider Nation. I think that's a perfect fit, right? You talk about who can fix Jimmy G. Well, who created Jimmy G? It was Bill Belichick. You talk about a team that has a tough defense, but also has stars on the outside. When you talk about Devontae Adams, you talk about he also has, I forgot his receiver that used to be there with him as well, Jacoby Myers. Right, so he'll be walking into a tough running game.
You know who else he has there? Tom Brady is one of the minority owners of that team. That'd be a fascinating little turn of events. I like it. Let's get Mike Reiss in on all of this. Happy New Year, Mike Reiss, who covers the Patriots for us so well and has for a million years. So look, we're already sitting here talking about where Bill may be next year. Obviously, it is not, at least in my knowledge, a foregone conclusion that he isn't back in New England next year. No one knows the inner workings there better than you do. Walk us through it. What should we expect to happen after Sunday's game?
All right, Greeny, here's my understanding of what's going to unfold. Team owner Robert Kraft, team president Jonathan Kraft have a meeting with Bill Belichick. That is currently scheduled for Monday. And they're going to be looking for some answers as to why things have fallen off so dramatically this season. Robert Kraft has been very disappointed with the way this season has unfolded naturally. And people that are close to him relayed to me that disappointment has been so extreme to the point that he has strongly considered moving on from Belichick. But these people also tell me, Greeny, that no decision has been made at this point, and that's why this final meeting will be so important.
So what should we expect in that meeting? Is this something where Bill Belichick is walking in there? I'm pleading is by no means the word I mean to use, but I can't think of a better one. Is Belichick going in there trying to convince them that he should keep the job, and here's why?
So I think, to me, Greeny, you just got to start with the assumption that Belichick wants to be here. So start with that. And then at that point, I think he just needs to explain to them, okay, here's where things went wrong. Here's my part in that. And here's my vision for how we're going to turn this thing around. And, you know, Damian, who's on the set, has been in those team meetings with players when Belichick stands in front of that room and he says, look, if we hit these targets this week, we're going to win the game. And players often tell me, Greeny, they say, I don't understand. He's right all the time on that. To me, he basically needs to do the same thing with the Crafts in terms of his job.
That is interesting. I'm going to get D. Wood and the entire group in here in a minute, but I have a couple of more for you, Mike, because your insight into this is so good. You said a fascinating thing. You said we're starting with the premise that Belichick wants to be here. Do we have any reason to believe that isn't the case?
Greeny, we don't. And part of that is that Bill Belichick doesn't tell anyone. And so I think he is so laser focused. And I think Damian can speak to this as well. People might be watching this being like, you got to be kidding me. We got to have a season-ending meeting to know where things stand. In Bill Belichick's world, that's the way it works. He is so laser focused on each week, each game, that ownership gives him the space to say, hey, we'll talk about the big picture after the season.
Fascinating. And so we'll leave that there for the moment. Let me get the rest of the group in here on a couple of other things. But Mike Reiss, you stay with us because I want you to be a part of this conversation. Again, D. Wood, you know this whole system well. You were drafted there. You won championships there playing for Belichick. You know the inner workings of it. Do you believe that Bill Belichick should continue to be the coach of the Patriots beyond this season?
No, I think honestly, I think this will be the perfect time for the Patriots to kind of reset things in New England. All good things must come to an end. We saw Tom Brady move on, go to Tampa. We see that basically the bottom has fallen out as far as New England is concerned. And so, listen, I totally agree with what Mike Reiss was talking about as far as this meeting and the way that Bill goes about doing things. But I think Kraft is, man, this season probably, I can't even imagine how Kraft feels after watching the debacle that this Patriots season has unfolded. And I just feel like it would be in everyone's best interest for the Patriots to trade away Bill Belichick and start anew in New England.
And to be clear, trade away is a fascinating part of this conversation. He remains under contract. So rather than fire him, they could try to engineer some sort of deal where someone gives them a first-round pick or something like that for him. Why are you laughing at that?
Who's going to take on that salary? Listen, like
Belichick's salary?
We know more about Putin's salary than we know about Bill Belichick's salary.
But
like,
there is no salary cap on coaches.
I get that, but who want to take on somebody that's coming in with $30 million? We don't know how much he makes because he's the general manager and the head coach.
Right.
I think this meeting is more about going over personnel and saying, okay, Bill, you failed us as a talent evaluator, right? So they may want to take some of that power. Will Bill Belichick, take that like demotion in that point?
Well, could you imagine that situation? Like, if you're Bill, I'm not going to answer to anyone. Like, I'm just not going to do that.
But he's failed in that part. It's not Bill Belichick, the coach, that has failed the Patriots. It's Bill Belichick, the talent evaluator, in buying the groceries.
I'm glad you said that.
And,
I meant to ask.
They have a top pick in the draft, which is very valuable to their organization moving forward.
Right.
So if you're Robert Kraft, do you want Bill Belichick making that?
He's already ruined one in Mac Jones, right? Am I going to trust you to do another one? I don't know if I can do that.
That was what I meant to ask Reiss that question, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Mike, it has been brought up multiple times here that Kraft might suggest to Belichick, you keep coaching the team, but we want to bring someone else in to handle the personnel. I don't know Bill 1/1,000th as well as you do, but my sense is that Bill would tell him to stick that where the sun doesn't shine, although probably a lot nicer than I just said it. What would be your sense of that whole situation?
Hard to know, Greeny. I think about it. He's got his 2 sons on the coaching staff. You just don't know how he feels about being here. If he wants to be here, I could see a scenario where they're talking in this meeting and Bill says, if we can agree on someone that, can help me in that area, here are some of my shortcomings. Bill Belichick would not surprise me if he did go along with that, Greeny.
Fascinating. I'm so glad we brought that up because, again, Reiss knows him 1,000,000 times better than I do, and so I defer to him for sure.
I don't think they should move on from him because I just covered the Bills and is that okay, Bart? Because I just covered the Bills and Patriots over the weekend, and the Bills only beat the Patriots by 6 points. Bailey Zappi threw 3 interceptions. That defense, week in and week out, they give teams problems. Bill Belichick has not forgotten how to coach. Now, here's the problem. Looking at that embrace, Sean McDermott was asked about that. That was relatively long considering, the rivalry and all this stuff. And he said, I just want Bill to know how much I respect him, how much I value him as a head coach. And it feels like people in the NFL are looking at this as this is going to be Belichick's final run in New England, this final weekend. But I think it would be a mistake to move on.
I mean, Mike just said the idea that they bring someone in who could handle the personnel part of it with him, more of a combination, which he had obviously with Scott Pioli, right? They had a good relationship and all that sort of thing. People have gone on. So maybe that is a little bit more realistic.
Well, they always hire in-house, right? It's always still 5 degrees of separation. But I think this is an opportunity to be able to bring in a new era to New England Patriots, whether it's Gerard Mayo or you try and go get Mike Vrabel to come back. You talk about a 71-year-old man that you're expecting to get a young quarterback and be with him for 15 years, it's not realistic.
Right.
So you're going to be moving on with him. So you better find the answer to the solution long term. Listen, we watched Chuck Noll get fired, right?
Yeah.
We watched Don Shula get fired. It happens. People have the end of their runs. He's 71 years old. You have to take his age into account.
Let me bring Reiss back in for one last thing. Because one of the other things that people speculate about is, does Bill want to coach somewhere else? If he's no longer in New England, he is approaching that all-time wins record of Don Shula. We assume that would mean a lot to him. He is someone who cares a lot about the history of the game. Again, you know him as well as anyone in the media can know him. Is your sense that if he is no longer in New England next year, that he would choose to be coaching someplace else next season?
I think decisively, Greeny. I asked him at the start of this season, I said, you're 71, you're in here grinding, you could be doing anything else right now. Why do you do this? He said, this is what I do. And I think that sums it up perfectly.
I mean, I'm dealing with, I always say it, if I messed up in high school, I mean, I could be these kids' dads, It's like, I'm just being myself and trying to help them win games.
Atta Pappy.
I love it.
That's a hilarious thing for him to say. Isn't it hilarious? Are they the most dangerous team right now to Baltimore in the entire AFC?
They are.
They are.
They are, yeah. And I can tell you that because I've watched them literally every single week of my life. No, they are, because that defense is legit, and I think people always want to discount Cleveland, but
You played with
real.
Flacco in Baltimore. I mean, is this real?
Yeah.
Is what's happening here real? Joe Flacco off the couch, completely out of retirement, and all of a sudden, literally looking like an elite quarterback?
The last a great quarterback loses that arm strength, and he has the confidence, and he's been there, seen it all. Just think, he went against Pittsburgh, he went against Baltimore in practice every day, and he can go on these runs where he don't turn the football over. And if he does that, they're going to be the scariest team. It could be a legitimate threat for the Super Bowl.
He did it once before. It was unlikely then. What he's doing now is practically impossible.
Look
Next
at this.
up in
Look at the
Saturday.
love for
It's
Flacco.
crazy. They
Look
love
at
him.
this.
All right, next up, Paul Feinbaum talking about the likelihood of Jim Harbaugh jumping to the NFL. Listen.
It's pretty simple. If you have a shot at 4 NFL franchises and they're coveting you, and then you're, on the other hand, you're facing the NCAA after you've already accomplished pretty much everything you set out to do, it's a very easy answer. He is leaving Michigan after next Monday night.
It's not just Paul who thinks that. What team? Give me a team that should be on Jim Harbaugh's phone right now.
Chargers. Like, life is a lot easier when you got a quarterback. And I think, we know the Chargers got cap situations they got to deal with, but when you got the number one piece figured out, everything else will fall in line.
I think, Harry.
I'm going to go with the Chargers, and also I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. You can't discredit them because they're going to have the number 1 overall pick. So if Jim Harbaugh becomes the head coach there, offensive-minded guy, he has his selection of what he wants to do. Keep Justin Fields or select the quarterback of his choice.
I actually like Chicago, although it seems like Eberflus might be safe, so I don't know if they're...
That was my question to you. If they win this weekend, they're 8-9.
I think
he may have
Eberflus is
saved
safe.
his
I think
job.
he's safe.
So I like the idea of Harbaugh in Chicago. I don't think it's going to happen. Chargers is the obvious one. I'm not going to lie. I would love to see Jim Harbaugh and Mark Davis, those two personalities in that power struggle. I would kill to see that. Who's going to run the Raiders?
Well, we talked about Belichick to the Raiders. I think Harbaugh to the Raiders might make a lot of sense. He also has that relationship with Brady, who was there in an ownership capacity. That would make sense. Draft a quarterback.
I'm going to tell you why it wouldn't work. If they don't have a dual threat quarterback, look at all the quarterbacks that Jim Harbaugh has had since being a head coach in the National Football League and in college. They're dual threat guys that can do a lot of different things on the football field. Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith, J.J. McCarthy. There's a reason why they went from Cade McNamara to J.J. McCarthy, because that's the
He
type
could
of
draft J.J. McCarthy this year with the Raiders if he wants to.
Yeah, but
right?
he
He
but
just said
depending on where
he's.
they're picking.
What? We'll see.
You know J.J. McCarthy, that ain't it. Like, Harbaugh, especially if he wins this national championship, he's on a mission to win a Super Bowl. Remember, he failed.
Yeah.
He's trying to tie up all loose ends. So I would say Chicago, because he can build and mold that program in his likeness. And you can think you're safe until somebody better comes along.
That's fair. I mean, the
what that's
Eberflus
all
thing
about.
will be interesting to watch. I got one more for you. Josh Allen asked yesterday about his mindset entering this enormous showdown, Week 18, Sunday night in Miami.
It's been survive and advance or win and go home, and it's no different this week. We don't want to rely on anybody else. We gotta, in our minds, it's a must-win game. We gotta go get this done, and there's a hungry team, a team that's really good, that's played very well throughout the season, standing in front of us. So we gotta do whatever we can.
All right, here's the deal, Josh. I need this from you, my man. I have been riding this thing, and it has been working. They were 6-6, and Hembo and I did an essay that he is actually so much better than people ever say. And then they started winning. They're actually 4-0 since then, but they don't look good enough. The last 2 weeks were their homecoming games, as you call it, and they've really struggled. They barely beat the Chargers. They barely beat the Patriots. Are they going to win Sunday night in Miami?
I don't think so, because I think Miami is playing this game the same way that the Ravens are going to play this game, because the Ravens don't want to mess around with Pittsburgh in the playoffs, because they know that if Miami knows if Buffalo gets in, they're a big threat to them because they see them all the time. They dominate that offense. I think the same sense of urgency that the Bills have, the Dolphins have, because they don't want to let them in the tournament because they know they're
let them in. They don't win the division if they don't. The Dolphins have every bit as much at stake as the Bills do.
And plus, remember, they got mollywop, right? 48-20, right? So those don't sit well. And I always say all the time, the teams that usually get beat like that when both teams are good, when they see each other the second time, things change, because the team that lost know that they have to change everything. The team that won thinks they're good.
Mollywop is a word we don't use enough. I really like that. Go ahead.
Here's the problem. The Dolphins are dealing with devastating injuries at the worst time.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, teams like the Browns and the Bills have literally had injuries earlier in the season and have had to deal with it.
Understood.
And still now the Bills, to me, are peaking. Josh Allen has been up and down. And after that game, he said to me, I threw the ball like absolute crap. So obviously he needs to have a better game. But in that locker room, they're talking about we are resilient. This is a Bills team that knows that they're good enough to be in the playoffs. I think they'll beat the Dolphins.
If you're the Miami Dolphins, if you lose Bradley Chubb, Jalen Phillips, you lose your starting linebacker, Jerome Baker, and then you have Xavier Howard that's doubtful for this football game.
Talk about the offensive injuries,
And then you have Jalen Waddle being hobbled.
Tyreek in a boot yesterday still.
Tyreek in a boot. I'm glad that everyone is okay there.
Yes.
His house was caught on fire, and thankfully no one seems to have been hurt in that, but they did see him in a boot. So, yeah, the Dolphins are banged up at the worst possible time. Why do you like Buffalo?
Yeah, mainly because of the defensive injuries. I mean, Kimberley talked about it. The Dolphins got some of the most brutal injuries at the worst time. And listen, for me, as much as we talk about Josh Allen, I'm going to go James Cook. I think when Buffalo is at their best, it's when James Cook is getting the rock, it both in running the ball and especially in the pass game, because he's such a mismatch type of guy. So feed him the rock, good things happen for the Buffalo Bills.
On the other side, feed Achane and feed Mostert as well.
Mostert's dealing with a knee and an ankle.
Achane had 160 yards against that Baltimore Ravens defense, and they had him on the ropes, and then some things didn't go their way, and it looks a lot worse than it should have been.
It'll be a fun environment to walk into. Their home field. I know their fans going to be loud because there's not much to do in Green Bay except watch football, but
I love the play.
I mean, did he lie?
I love the
lie, though?
That's where you
Where's
go
the lie,
to,
though?
start your family, get married and stuff like that, Green Bay, when you play up there?
What does that mean?
Family.
I don't understand why you're starting a family.
Because there's
There's
nothing
literally
else to do
nothing
up
else to do.
It's one Applebee's, Greeny, and a Hardee's. You don't see Hardee's nowhere.
I'm not going to a place where there's only one Applebee's. Right? You know anything about me. Anyway, the point of it is this. So they've been great. Jordan Love, he's been great. They're looking to make the playoffs. Yeah. Here's the real question. Kimberley Martin, my insider extraordinaire. Is Sunday, win, lose, or draw, Justin Fields' last game as a Bear?
If you are waiting till week 18 to know what you want to do with your quarterback, then the Chicago Bears don't know what they're doing. I think they should keep him, right? Kimberley Martin thinks they should keep Justin Fields and build around him like you see other franchises do, Buffalo, Eagles, all the other teams, right? However, when I talk to NFL GMs and salary cap execs, they look at me like I'm crazy, or they text me back with all sorts of question marks and exclamation points, like why would they keep Justin Fields? Strictly because with a rookie quarterback, you can reset the clock with everything from a roster standpoint and build it the way you want to build. But again, he is so talented.
Yep.
What is this new quarterback going to do behind this offensive line with it? Why would you not build around a quarterback and get him some weapons?
Listen, I think I love Justin Fields. I think that the trajectory is there, but you got to go with the rookie guy. You got to go with listen. You got a guy. Reset everything. You have him under control, team control for 5 years.
Right.
With cap ramifications, you're able to just continue to add a number of pieces around your rookie quarterback. Come on.
Here's the thing, right? Do you want to be the organization that passed on Patrick Mahomes? You want to be that passed on C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
You also want to be the team that passed on maybe Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
That's three. Those are three pills you have to swallow.
Okay.
Right. You talk about this guy could be the next Patrick Mahomes. Do you want to be that guy?
Would Patrick Mahomes have been the next Patrick Mahomes if he had been drafted by the Bears when they took Mitchell Trubisky in a situation where their coach was a lame duck and their team stunk? Absolutely not.
Let's go C.J. Stroud
then. Quarterbacks don't get developed; they get ruined. Okay. If you look back at over the course of the last 25 years in this millennium, the quarterbacks who have gone number one overall, Hembo and I broke this down. Yep. How many of them would have been worth 3 number 1 picks? The answer was 6 yes and 9 no out of 15 quarterbacks who've gone number 1 overall. You get the 3 picks for him. You can get 3 ones for Justin Fields, or excuse me, for the first pick in the draft. You take the 3 ones because it is at best a 50-50 proposition that any of the kids you're drafting are going to be great.
Nope, because guess what? You're still behind the Detroit Lions in that division. Okay. You need to reset, get cheap, and stack the deck.
How about 3 number? What's cheaper than getting all these good players on rookie contracts?
What do you mean? You can go out and buy players, and the reason right now.
That's not cheap.
The reason why San Francisco got $100 million on their defensive line is because their quarterback don't make no money.
Right.
So the error is that the quarterback, it may be good, may not be good. But then if you can go out and build a team around them, it's sustainable. So you can build the infrastructure. So if you had you can go out there, you don't think they can get a first-round draft pick for Justin Fields if they call Atlanta?
With all these picks, they could get the equivalent of Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson.
And how did all that work out for the Jets without a quarterback?
Because the quarterback stinks, but they've got one. They have one, Justin Fields. He's at least good. He's not terrible.
Yeah, at least good, not great. You got an opportunity to get special. The ones that got special, you look at what Joe Burrow was able to do. Like, do you think the Bears would be better off?
Joe Burrow was 1 in a million.
Well, what about C.J. Stroud?
Let me ask you this question, Ray. Let me ask you this question. We've seen the turnaround of the Bears right now, mainly because of the defense, right? So you got that side of the ball is hemmed up. Now you bring in a rookie quarterback, and
Who's
you
the coach?
Keeping the same coach? Yes.
Keeping the same.
Yes.
I'll go with Harbaugh.
I'm not saying keep the same offensive coordinator.
If they draft a quarterback #1 overall, they're not keeping Matt Eberflus as the head coach.
It can be a win-win. It's situations where it can be a win-win. You can get a first-round draft pick for Justin Fields. You can get a first-round draft pick for him because you have control for him for 2 years, and you can reset the
clock. I think they keep Matt Eberflus.
I understand the football logic. I understand what all football people are saying. All I'm saying is you cannot – these quarterbacks, it's not a sure thing. Number two, what are you putting around that rookie quarterback? You keep talking about, we'll build around –
They got a #1.
They got two top 10 picks.